All right, and we are live. And I won't do my coming to you live straight from New Orleans today. But actually, by not doing it, I did it. Let's talk about expectations theory. There's a large block of work in psychology that's called expectations theory. And what the conclusions are is that there are people that are motivated to act in a particular way by what they expect to happen more than any other factor or influence. In other words, you do the things you do because of the consequences you feel you will experience as a result, or the results you expect to experience as a result of your work. Expectations theory, it explains small things like what you do and say in a social situation, and also in large matters such as capital movements in financial markets, or even in any type of capital movements. This expectations theory goes back to some of the stuff I was talking about on a previous hangout about habits and how you can actually manufacture your own expectations by developing the habit of expecting good things to happen, no matter how they appear right now. When we do this, our expectations then influence our attitudes and the way we treat other people, the way we work, the way we handle business, and our attitudes, expectations, and behaviors will then have an influence on the way things actually work out. And all this means is that as humans, we have the power to control so much of our own futures by expecting things to happen in a positive way. And this also works with negative expectations. People with negative expectations, man, these become those self-fulfilling prophecies that I talked about a couple of weeks ago also. You know, if you expect something to turn out poorly, it affects your attitude and your behavior toward it, and it will actually increase the likelihood that we experience negative consequences, you know, the ones that we were anticipating. And in any behaviors, if you repeat them often enough, let's say you have negative behaviors, you develop a negative and pessimistic attitude, and this way of thinking will become a habit. And there are a plethora of people in this world that seem to have this ongoing habit of thinking, I can never do this, I can never do that, I'll never make it. And they never will because they think that way. On the upside, those of us that look at things in a positive manner and say, I can do it, and they just take the action and do it, these are the people that actually have positive things happening in life. And this way of thinking also will become a habit and increase the positive things that happen in our life. Now, when we're talking about habits, we wonder sometimes, how long does it take to develop a new habit? And the fact is, the time period can be really any length, depending on what the habit is, from a single second to several years. The speed of new habit pattern development is largely determined by the intensity of the emotion that accompanies the decision to begin acting in a particular way. For example, if you have something that you want and you are very intense about it, and you just know that you're going to get it, and you're taking every action that needs to be taken to get it, you're going to develop those habits a lot more quickly than if you say, well, you know, I kind of want it. You know, for example, if I go outside and say, you know, I want my yard to look really nice, but I really don't want it that bad, so I'm going to cut the grass, and I'm not going to edge, and you know, I'm not going to get the blower out or sweep up afterwards. I'm just going to cut the grass. Well, I'm not too intense about it. But man, if I get out there and hustle and do every little thing to make that happen, well, then it's going to happen. Many people talk about and resolve to do a lot of things. But many people do not follow through. On the other hand, many people do follow through. And if we just drive down the highway and in a populated area and look at people and look at their habits, even little things, how do they groom themselves? What are they driving? Is it clean? When they're going to their place of business, what is their intensity like? And one thing that I've noticed is the people that get there early, the people that spend their whole day in the office hustling up some business. And when I say hustling up some business, we are all not hustlers in the sense of hustling somebody out of something. I mean hustlers as in we're shakers and movers. You know, we get stuff done. If you notice, the people that are like that typically are the ones in higher positions. And I'm not talking about the mid-level management guy that sits on his ass all day and plays solitaire on the computer or shops on Amazon or eBay. I'm not talking about that guy. I'm talking about the guy with the Benz in the parking lot. And that's who we all need to be to really make it in this business. And you know, you can make a little bit of money in this just doing a little, or you can make a lot of money in this doing a lot. Let's move this on to to open forum, man, because I'm about to get started on a whole different thing that I don't want to walk into. Let's go back to the original discussion I think I had on there. I believe it was overcoming obstacles. So let's talk about obstacles, and let's talk about how to find the solution. And there's two types of people. There's the type that find a solution, and there's the type that complain that nobody has found a solution for them. And I promise you, somebody's calling me a dick right now for saying that. And I hope they are. And maybe if it's not somebody viewing this, maybe it'll be somebody watching it later. I'm going to say, hey, how you doing? Yes, I am. I'm an arrogant a-hole.
Okay, so I've got a question for you. On the objection where someone says they're too busy, how do you respond to that one?
Well, it depends on the situation. You know, do they really sound like they're busy, or are they just trying to get you off of the phone?
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things you can do is schedule a time, a specific time, not, well, I'll call you back in a few days. Get them to commit to having the business ready for you at a specific time. And, you know, there are other ways to push them harder. You know, like, well, if you're too busy to collect your money, you need me now more than ever.
That's good. Okay, thank you.
You know, that could be, and if you really want to pull a mic, you can say, you know, maybe that's why you're not collecting your money now.
Yes, that's a very direct approach.
Yeah, and saying that has gotten me hung up on several times. I'm not going to BS you on that one. I have definitely gotten a phone slammed in my face for saying, well, maybe that's why you're not collecting your money now. So there's probably a softer approach to that.
That's okay. I wanted to hear all approaches because this is one that I think is really difficult no matter what, if a person really is busy, and or if they're going to stick with that. So yeah, I mean, right there, I think your key is you're trying to engage them. Then you get to find out if they really are busy or not.
And you know, sometimes they really are busy. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they claim they don't even have time to talk about it. I don't have time to get the accounts ready. I don't have time to send it to you. I don't have time to think. Man, that must be awful. I mean, what do you do if you get hungry? Do you have time to eat? Do you have time to go to lunch? You know, and sometimes this is a stall. Sometimes it's one of these ways to blow you off and get off of the phone. And you know, I think something we definitely want to do in there is acknowledge, you know, that they're busy. You know, hey, I know you're busy. I expected you to be. I'm busy too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and one of the ones, and this is, uh, 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 I'm sure you've heard me say this before. Most successful people are. Give them a little pat on the back. Hey, buddy, most successful people are busy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know, I anticipated you'd be busy when I called you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hey, Mike, one of the things I was going to kind of interject is that when I was working at the other company, one of the things that we trained us is not to let them off the phone. Is like I would tell this guy, say, look, you know, this is your money that you worked really hard for. So if that's the case, for example, like a trucking company, is it okay right now if I hire your trucking company to haul a bunch of lumber for me and then not pay you? If that's the case, that's what you're conveying to all your customers that, you know what, you don't have to pay me. I'll work for you for free. You know, that's money that you've got sitting out there that you're not collecting on, that you're doing your hard work and your efforts for. And it would stand them up. They'd be like, well, that makes sense. You know, and a lot of these times, these guys, it's a knee-jerk reaction to say, hey, you know what, yeah, we don't have anything. I don't have any, you know, I don't have the time to do this because they get so many calls, but you got to be a little tenacious and push through to get them to come up with what that pain funnel is, we used to call it. You know, where their debt is. You know, find the debt. You know, and no, just you got to push them a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. The pain funnel. I have a somewhere in our documents. I have a pain sheet.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one called a pain sheet and one called a debt sheet. They're both the same thing now. But yeah, the pain funnel, man. I've heard that before, and that's it's very real, because we're the pain medicine. I mean, come on. Come down to the pain clinic, Mr. Credit Manager. We're going to take your pain away. I like that.
Yeah, thank you. That's just a question that comes up a lot with the trainees when we get to I'm too busy, how to go about it. And I wanted to hear other responses than my own. But you actually touched on mine, which is typically acknowledge the busyness if it sounds really legitimate, and then immediately tell them you're going to call them back at another time. And what I found is that if people really are busy, they'll just be like, okay, sure. And you can call them back. You kind of get sort of a permission, essentially, to call them back that was implied there. Or, but if they're not really busy and they keep trying to talk to you, then I found that it kind of proves it or disproves what they were trying to say. And then I found that to be easier than to open the conversation up to, as you said, getting to the pain. So anyway, thank you, Mike, and thanks, Trey, too. That was really great input.
And I like Trey. I love the aggressive approach, man, because if you've listened to some of my videos or watched, you've probably figured out that I'm kind of on the aggressive side. And I love aggressive people, man. That's I think that we should all be aggressive, man. The world would be so much more fun if everybody was just aggressive. Keep us all on our toes.
You have to be. It's funny because I had a guy that I was on the phone. For example, I'll use the trucking industry because I was on the trucking industry, and this guy, I asked him, I said, you know, what have you got? Give me your slowest paying customer right now. And he goes, well, I don't have anything. I said, you've been in business for how long? He goes, 20 years. I said, 20 years, you've never had one person who's ever not paid you. He goes, well, and I kept pushing and pushing. He goes, yeah, I got this one guy last year, we wrote off, you know, $8,000. I said, $8,000? You just wrote it off? I said, that's, you know, you got to push these people. You know, you have to be aggressive.
And you know what I like on those write-offs, man? How much does it cost you to make that $8,000 back? And a lot of times, somebody will say, oh, well, you know, I got another $8,000 load to do right now. Really, how much do you actually make off of that $8,000 load? What's your actual net profit margin, not the gross? I'm talking about the net after everything. How much of that 8,000 goes in your pocket? 1,000? 500? I mean, do you have to do 16 more of those $8,000 loads to make $8,000 back? I bet you do.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I like to do, not just to scare them into placing it, but to educate them too, you know? And an educated client is a much better client than a client who's just clueless, you know?
Yeah, those were both good. Actually, both of your responses there. You know, some trainees are too uncomfortable to get on right now, and they're just watching, and this is really helpful. And what you were just saying there, Mike, that was so nicely distilled, because that's come up a lot where people are trying to get their mind around the concept of how one loss like that is so much harder to make up because you're paying for it in net profit. I think that kind of demonstrated it really well there. Thank you.
Yeah, and for anybody who's watching, we have a video on our YouTube channel called, I believe it's called Profit, Loss, Bad Debt, and Sales. But it's in our playlist, our sales training playlist on our YouTube channel, and it goes very in depth into how much money a company can actually lose and how much it takes in additional new sales just to recover from a loss. And it usually ends up being a very large amount of money that they have to bring in just to offset a loss. And this means all of this new business they're doing, they're not going to make jack off of it. They're not going to put anything in their pocket. They're going to pull their wallet out and they're going to go, it's okay. What happened to my money?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Something I wanted to add, though, on the I'm too busy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start using a test when they're busy. How about this, Mr. Prospect? It's very simple for us to get started. Give me the debtor's name, the amount that's owed, the date of last sale, and your contact at the company. I'll email you the paperwork, and you can get it back to me in the morning. But we can get started looking into it right now for you. And if they're going to jump and give you the information, they're serious. Mm-hmm. Or maybe that's something that can bring you right into, if they say, oh, I got to look it up. Oh, well, you're in front of your computer right now, aren't you? And they probably are if they answer the phone on their desk. Can you just look it up real quick? I'm sure someone as successful as you has a very efficient system. But that rolls us right on into, if they're absolutely too busy to pull it up right now, well, look, why don't I give you a call in the morning and you can have it ready for me? What time is good for you? 9 a.m.? Or do you want me to call you about 11 a.m., a little closer to lunchtime to let you get settled in? And never leave that open-ended. Give them two choices and make them pick one. And if they say, oh, tomorrow morning's no good at all, no problem. I can call you in the afternoon. And it's putting a little bit of pressure, but, you know, it lets them know, look, we're serious about getting this done for you. And, I mean, the fact is, we're damn good at what we do. And, Kim, well, you've seen what happens here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Chances are we're going to get them their money better than anyone else out there.
That's great. That'll be a really good test. That'll really be a really good test. So acknowledge that it's simple, that this is a fast process, and just go straight to the ask and see what happens, basically. Okay, cool, cool. Actually, I have another question, unless Trey had a question or anything to throw in.
Go ahead, Kim.
Okay. So this actually happened yesterday, Mike. On one of the calls I was making on a lead. And I came upon a lady who was very negative about collections, which, you know, tried to get to the bottom of that, and it turned out she had used collections before. Now she didn't feel she had any need for it. She also didn't have a big company, but, you know, it was interesting. I got a little further. I got to get a little bit of qualifying in, but in the end, the reason why she didn't like collections was she said, I hired a collector before, and then I was the one who actually collected the money, and they still wanted to charge me. And I'm just like, okay, that was probably a part of your agreement there. But she was really indignant about that, from the sense of, well, if I did it, they shouldn't, you know, I shouldn't have to be charged. And it really reminded me of how in real estate you run into that too sometimes, where you list a person's property. It's an exclusive listing, meaning the realtor has the exclusive right to sell it no matter who comes along and buys it, whether they were brought in by the seller or not. But it was interesting because she just had such a vehement attitude about it. At the time, I was a little surprised, and I probably could have responded better. But anyway, I'd just love to hear what you would have said, Mike.
I would have asked her, why were you still contacting the debtor if the collection agency was handling it for you? And I would have shut up and let her explain why. And she probably would have said, oh, well, he called me. Because a lot of times a debtor will call a client, and that's why it's very important for us to prep our clients every time we close a deal with them. Refer all debtor calls back to Lyons and Associates.
Mm-hmm.
If your debtor can let the other people in your office know also, do not take their call. Refer them back to us. Because what happens when clients begin taking the debtor's call, they begin listening to his story. They begin cutting deals, making payment arrangements, not getting the interest and collection fees. Oh, and this happens all the time. The client will have the debtor call in, and they'll take a payment from them, and they get the principal balance, no fees. Or I love the one, they call up, oh, hey, man, I just talked to ABC Construction, and he offered me $500 a month, so I told him that's okay, and he's going to start sending us payments here. Really? You told him that was okay. And these are the types of things that happen when a client takes a call that should have been handled by a collector, okay? Because the balance is already seriously delinquent if it has come to us, okay? Secondly, most credit managers are not trained to deal with distressed debt, and that's what these debts are considered, distressed, because they are. You know, anything over 90 days it's starting to lose value rapidly.
Diminishes.
Yeah, that's just how it is. There's no way around it. But when clients begin taking these calls and listening to the guy's story, and you know, oh well, you know, man, my wife had cancer, and I really haven't had time to do the accounts payable, and we got in all kind of trouble with the business. And the fact of the matter is, and I know this is going to sound crass, what does your wife's cancer have to do with your business? Why do you not have a contingency plan in place for your business to run the way it should run if there is an illness within the top echelon of the company? You know, and these are things that clients will hear, and they'll say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," and they start apologizing. They start apologizing, and the guy owes them $20,000, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Well, what can you pay? And then he's like, "Oh, well, you know, I was thinking I could pay you $1,000 a month for 20 months, and you know, I have to put the first payment on a credit card because my cash flow is really," and I'll give him a credit card, and then the next payment comes along, and I'll drag them on for another few months. When that next month comes by, they'll say, "Oh man, look, I've been really trying. I've been really trying to get it back on track," and now the client's back at square one because they took that call. Now, if you think I'm crass about that, call Tom and ask him his opinion, Kim.
No, I understand.
But the fact is, a business is separate from your personal life. A year ago, I was in a bad car accident. I was hospitalized for a little while, and I was unable to run my business. What do you think happened to my business during that time?
Your contingency plan.
Exactly. That's why we're still in business.
Yeah.
I was out of commission for 2 months. 60 days. 60 days. The business still ran. I didn't come back and cry to anybody. "Oh my goodness. Me hurted me head. Can't run biz." No. That's not the case at all. Business is separate from personal. And that's something when a client takes a call like that, you see, if, say for instance, I get a call from a debtor like that, or Tom gets a call, or another collector that is a real collector, they're going to listen to the story. They're going to listen to it. They're not going to hammer them about it, you know, because, I mean, you know, debtors have emotions too. We can't just keep kicking them and kicking them and kicking them. But at some point, that collector has to tell the debtor, "Look, I understand your situation. I understand what happened. I can even empathize with it. However, this has absolutely nothing to do with your obligation to my client. Now, what we need to do is help you find a solution for this situation. You know, what happened during that time when you were out and you didn't have a contingency plan at all? What took place? Did your receivables not come in? Because if it's your receivables, I can help you with that. You know, maybe you need to go into your bank and get a line of credit, get some additional working capital. You know, if you have any length of relationship with your bank, you should be able to walk in, go see your commercial banking officer, shake his hand, and say, "Hey, buddy, I need some money." And he should say, how much do you need? And then, you know, paperwork gets done, and then the money's in his operating account, and he can go back to work. Now, sometimes we run into debtors that have dug themselves into a hole so deep that they will never extricate themselves. This happens sometimes too, and you know, sometimes there's absolutely nothing they can do. But in other cases, there's usually a situation right around the corner, and the fact that here we teach our collectors to deal with every type of situation. We have SOP, standard operating procedure, but we have SOP with variables. There are a lot of agencies out there that what they'll do is, let's say, large balance commercial account. They'll DTO. That's a detective talk on, you know, where PI calls a debtor and pretty much scares the hell out of them. Lets them know everything that's going to be taking place. Then an initial talk-off is done by the collector, and of course a demand letter goes out. If there's not an adequate response, then a PI might go out and visit. A lot of agencies have cut back on how much these tools get used, though. That's one of the things that produces lower yields at other companies. But anyway, these are things that should take place. Sometimes before a PI, the collector will begin contacting other vendors that the debtor company does business with and interviewing them about the debtor's business practices with them. At which point an attorney demand might go out from an attorney local in their area. An asset and liability letter will go out from us, or a final demand, or some other type of non-friendly letter. And these are things that are normal around most agencies, most commercial agencies anyway. These things are pretty normal. What makes these things really useful is having a collection team that not only knows that these things need to be used, but actually how to use them, how to instruct the PI, how to properly do a vendor talk-off. Okay, for example, a lot of agencies will send a PI for a personal visit. The PI goes out, takes a couple of pictures from the outside, goes and hands the debtor a letter, and leaves. Now, that can raise a few eyebrows. I mean, it lets them know somebody came out. Or they can tell the PI, look, this is what I want you to do. If you pull up or walk up to the place of business and there's someone inside that notices you and is looking at you, take your pictures. If not, wait till you're leaving to take them. What I want you to do is walk inside the building, start looking at licenses on the wall, you know, business license or occupational license, whatever they have on the wall. Walk up to it and start writing stuff down. Start looking around, writing stuff down on your clipboard until someone begins asking you, what are you doing, or can I help you? When that person asks, can I help you? Tell them you're doing an asset and liability for whatever the collector's name is with the firm Lyons and Associates. May I ask you a few questions about the business? And then the PI is to start asking them, you know, whatever questions the collector sends them. Now, a lot of times this person that asks, may I help you, is going to say, no, let me get somebody for you. And then he interviews that person. But the fact is, we want to ask them probing questions about the business. Typically, the collector is going to send the PI the company's annual sales, credit rating, thing like that, for him to utilize when he's conducting an interview. So the PI can begin his interview with, I understand you're doing about $25.5 million in annual sales. Are you still banking at Valley National Bank? Are you still doing business with ABC Tile? What about BCS Grout and Tile? Are you still doing business with them? And he's going to say, well, why do you need to know that? Well, because I need to interview them too. Now, that's a whole lot better than dropping a letter off. Hey man, I got a letter for you. It's from a collector. Wow, I'm getting scared myself from hearing that. But
Well, okay.
Go ahead, Kim.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, you've actually answered another question that a lot of trainees have had, which is, you know, what are we really doing differently? They want to know. Sorry, and you also answered sort of back to, like, why do people hire collectors? Well, we're not being hired to be a mediator. We're not being hired to, you know, mediate between two people. You're being hired to collect the money and, you know, to use the right amount of pressure to make that happen. So I appreciate those descriptions. That's really, really helpful. It answers a lot of questions people have had right there.
Oh yeah, and another thing on vendor talk-offs, and we don't just tell them we're going to interview their other vendors. We do it. We do it, and we don't. And other agencies do that. Some of them do that. It's a pretty common thing, but a lot of collectors are pretty lazy about actually calling and interviewing vendors because they don't know how to do it properly. They think it doesn't have the effect that it should. The fact is, when you're doing a vendor talk-off, you do not call the credit manager of that vendor company first. You find out who the debtor's salesperson is with that company. Because the credit manager is not going to run back and tell the debtor, hey man, somebody from Lyons and Associates is asking a whole bunch of questions about your account. The sales guy, however, he's going to want his customer to know that somebody's digging all up in his crap. Because the sales guy at that vendor company has a relationship with the debtor. He wants to continue selling to him. So you call and question the sales guy first, and you know the sales guy is going to be uncomfortable asking any questions. Just tell him, well, call him and ask him for permission. Okay? You don't want to answer my questions. Call him and ask him for permission. And the sales guy will call him every time. Every time. He'll call him up, man, I got this Tom Shanahan guy from the firm Lyons and Associates asking me all kinds of crazy things. He even asked me if you ever bounced a check with us, man. Are you having financial problems or something? And this is going to ensue what we know as rage. That's the first psychological action that the debtor is going to have. Rage. He's going to be so pissed off, his face is going to be red. There's going to be steam coming out of his ears like in the cartoons. And he's going to call that collector and start cursing at him and yelling. And the collector's going to sit there and listen to it. And when that debtor gets finished, the collector's going to say, "Sir, was there a question in there? Because I'm very busy." The collector's not even going to ask him for the money. He's going to make that guy offer him the money. That's what he's going to do. And he's going to do that because it's what we call a 180. Every other collector that's calling him is saying, hey man, you got my money? You got my money, man? Where's my money? Everybody's doing that to him. Now we got this guy wondering, well, he didn't even ask for the money. He tried to rush me off of the phone. And I called him. He didn't even ask for the money. All he did was confirm, yeah, we're still handling this case for, whatever client. We're still handling it. Matter of fact, our investigation is in progress right now. Did you have any other questions? Is there something I can do to help you? I need you to stop talking to my vendors. Well, sir, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I have a job to complete for my client. I mean, what would happen to your customers if you didn't do the job for them that you promised to do? What would happen then? And you see, now the guy's all emotional and he's trying to figure out where he's going to get the money from because he knows he owes the money. And sometimes he's going to ask, well, what do I need to do to get rid of you? That's my favorite one. What do I need to do to make you go away? Well, sir, I think you know what you need to do to make us go away. There's a balance owed to my client, $12,683. That includes interest and collection fees, which you're now liable for as per the credit application you signed with them. It's going to go up even further once our attorneys get involved. Can I have FedEx pick up a check today from you? Because that would make it go away. If not, I'm really busy. I have to, matter of fact, and he's going to make some paper move in the phone for the guy. Matter of fact, I got your file on my desk right now. I've got some more work to do on it. Now he's really under the guy's skin. And this debtor, he wants to make this collector go away because this collector is going to cause some turmoil. That's what collectors do. And the beauty about it is we hire people who like it. We hire people who enjoy it. And these guys are like me. They're the most arrogant SOBs on the planet. And they don't care what your problems are.
No.
You created your own business problems. Sorry about your luck. Yeah, is it crass? Absolutely. It's supposed to be. Now, on the other hand, we can use approaches that keep relationships intact, and we know how to do that too. But if a client just wants their money, they need to hire an agency that still has the balls to do things the way we do it. A lot of them don't. A lot of them are scared. Oh, we're going to lose our license if we do something like that. No, you're not. You're an idiot. If you do that on consumer debt, then yeah, you're going to lose your license. Nobody's going to bond you, and you're probably going to get sued. But commercial debt, dude, the door is open. The door's open. You just got to walk into it. And that's how it works, man. Business in itself is brutal.
Well, it seems like it has to be, because otherwise, I mean, it would damage our economy so much with so many people trying to get out of their debts. And there are already so many people trying to get out of their debts. And you just reminded me too, like, especially as you go through this process, it makes more sense too why the client control becomes so important, because we have to make sure we have told the client don't communicate with the debtor. But I want to tell you one that came up. It's a total technology thing. I had a client who this type of pressure was being put on the debtor. He wanted this type of pressure put on the debtor, so that was clear. And thankfully, I had gone over the client control with the person, and also the client was fed up. But the debtor started texting him and was very manipulative, extremely manipulative, and kept saying things like, I offered to pay X amount and they wouldn't take it, and I offered to make a payment plan and they wouldn't take it. And so was trying to play the client against us. And anyway, it was a perfect example for me, because that was my first example in how important it is to make sure that you explain to the client why not to contact the debtor, and if there are any contacts, to forward them to us. And as I said, fortunately in this case it worked out fine anyway, because the person, my client, was completely fed up with this guy and knew that he would try something like that. But people get so manipulative because they want to escape something they agreed to, and that's not right, And so I appreciate it.
Exactly. That's just like saying, I made some really stupid business decisions. Can you give me a bailout?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was good input, Kim.
And that's a perfect example of exactly what happens. And if our clients start engaging that behavior, they lose.
Yeah.
We're not telling them refer the calls back to us because we want to be dicks about it. We're doing that because, well, not because we want to be dicks, but we need to be. We have to be. That's our job. That's our job, to handle the situation and get the client paid. And unfortunately, if they have somebody that has any conscience at all, not that we hire a bunch of sociopaths, but the fact is, collectors have to be hardcore businessmen. They have to be. Trey, and I'm not going to mention any agency names or anything, but you've had some agency experience in the sales end. What were the collectors like at the agency you worked for?
They were very aggressive. In fact, I was going to put some input that was interesting. We had signed up this one guy. He owned an online auction site, and I had signed him up, and he sent me all the backup. And What happened was, I'm trying to remember the scenario. I guess the guy had reversed he got the auction, whatever he bought from the auction, and reversed his credit card. And then the only thing I was going to ask how our protocol is that the guy called back a couple days later and said, "Oh, you know what? I made a mistake. So I need to take this off. As far as being collected." Our company, when I worked for at the time, they said, "Well, you've already got us working on this," so they still made him pay the fee. So how do we do that? Are we still the same way?
Yeah, we need to charge cancellation fees if you look at our agreement, any barter, anything like that, because you will have that's a client backdoor all the way. Whenever
Right.
they do that, whenever they come in and say, "Oh, well, we just realized we're friends with them." Yeah, right.
But
Whenever,
I would tell a lot of these guys, I'd tell them as soon as I would get off the phone, I said, "Look," or I said, "the debtor's going to call you. He's going to start crying and whining, 'Oh, please, let me pay you.' Just refer the number back to us and let us handle it." Simple as that.
that's it. It's as simple as that. And clients, some of them are good, some of them are not good. Some of them are going to try and backdoor you, and that's another good reason to have the data referred to us. But the main reason is so we can handle it properly. I mean, that's the main reason. But the fact is, there are companies out there that will try to backdoor us for our fees, and we don't play that here.
Right.
We do not play it at all. And I promise you, I will spend $5,000 to sue somebody for $1,000.
Right.
Example out of
The
them.
principle of it.
I don't give a shit. I'll slam the piss out of them. I don't play games with clients. And one of the things is, if I ever do have to spend $5,000 to collect $1,000, they will pay every bit of those expenses, because I will put a good attorney on it, and I will seize their bank account as soon as judgment is awarded. And I won't even give them a chance to try and pay it. I will sit on that judgment for 30 days until the statutory appeals period expires. In the event they don't show up to court, which is usually what somebody like that does. They end up not showing up to court. You got a default judgment, and I'll wait for it to expire and then file a writ of execution. Give me that bank account, boy.
Right on.
So I think that there was a lot of lingo used here. So for the trainees who are watching, maybe we could clarify that this is in the case where a client who has hired us to do a collection job then turns around and goes to the debtor, makes their own deal, kind of like the lady I originally was talking about, and then tries to say, well, I collected the money, or I got a credit back for merchandise, or I, bartered with the client or something like that, so I don't need to pay you for, pay Lyons and Associates for their services anymore. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And we've had clients try to stiff us. We've had that happen maybe 2 times, but we have never not gotten paid our fees. That is yet to happen, and that's in 5 years of service, man. So we're pretty good. And actually, I've never even had to put one of our collectors on a client that was trying to not pay us.
Mm.
Of course, I've had to get on them.
Mm-hmm. And so I remember when I was starting out, you pointed out to me that this is why it's so important that we do have the clients sign the agreements, so that the collection agreements, so that they know what is expected of them, and that they don't have the right to negotiate with the debtor once they've hired us.
Exactly. Exactly. And Trey, I don't know if the company you came from used a signature agreement, but we do use one here, and it's for that purpose. I know a lot of agencies are really relaxed about, oh, just get the debtor information over the phone and we'll get started on it. We'll get the backup later in. We can get the debtor information and everything over the phone, and we can start looking into it, but we absolutely have to get them to sign that collection agreement. And it does a couple of things. It protects us and it protects the client. You know, it lets the client know what the exact terms and conditions are of our agreement. That way they know that they didn't just have some account executive from a collection agency call and promise them the world and then try and tell them something different.
One of the things, what we did, and just not to interrupt, I apologize, Mike, is that, and we might want to look into also with your companies, maybe having all the, because I know you have everything faxed to them and then they send it back or email it. There's a program out there called DocuSign, is what the company I came from, what we used to use, and they would just go into DocuSign, and what they would do is they'd sign the agreement right there, and it would come into our email, let them know that it was signed, and we would get the page back, the placement page, come back to their signature, and then they would send it back up later. And so maybe we should consider later on. It works very efficient. It's very quick.
Okay.
That way we're on the phone with them right there. I'd say, hey, look, open your email. Okay, and then you're going to see your DocuSign there. Go ahead and sign that. You just sign it right there, you know, with a couple clicks, and boom, I get the authorization right back to me immediately, I mean, you don't have to sit and wait for it to come back. And then at the same time, then I say, look, I need to put the backup together. Well, your invoices, because they don't know that term backup. I say, get your invoices together, because I'm going to need those for verification of the debt. And that would authorize us to start right away. Plus, I do kind of like we would do like a phone, you know, verification. Say, look, at this point, we want to welcome you on board for allowing us to help you collect your debt. Your debtor's going to call you, and so you're basically giving a verbal verification, as opposed also with the DocuSign, which is immediately you had that right back at me. So that way, sometimes with the fax, they go, well, all right, I'll get it back to you when I get a chance. Versus the DocuSign, when you do that, they get it back to you immediately, so they've already legally signed for us to start working for them.
Okay. I'm gonna check into that, man, because
It's a cool program. It's awesome.
our stuff is done via PDF. We email the agreement to them. It's a PDF file, and they can sign it right there. But I've seen DocuSign stuff before, and you know, I think you have a great point there that it might be more efficient. Most of the stuff we don't do by fax. Most of the time we send it by email, and on the Adobe files, they can sign those just right on their computer. They can put the information in and sign it. But DocuSign, that's online, right?
It's online, so you're doing it right with them at the same time, so it's real time. So they don't get like off track. Oh, I've got something to do. They're versus like they're still in the mode of, yeah, I want this debt collected. You've gone through the payment funnel. They know they need to get this money back. So now that they're getting online with you, they're signing the agreement. It comes back immediately, and you're starting for them right away.
Okay.
Just FYI.
I've seen DocuSign, but I've never actually looked into it, man. So that's some good advice.
I never knew about it either. I just learned about it. I thought this is a great program. It's immediate, and you get real-time verification when they've signed the agreement. It comes right in your email box. The DocuSign document was signed, so that way you have that right there that they're ready to roll for you.
Yeah, because we want to make it as easy as possible for them to give us the business. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But we're in the growing stages, and that's what's cool about this company is that, you know, we're gonna let's make this thing grow huge, Mike. I mean, I like the concept, and as far as let's do it. I mean, there's just a lot of things that we're gonna, we can all work together to kind of grow this thing as big as possible.
Well, I have. I don't know if I've ever talked much about domination on any of my videos, but when I started this company, man, I wanted to compete. That's all I wanted to do, man. I graduated from that. I want to dominate now. And I think that the collection industry on the commercial sector needs us. The commercial sector needs us to grow big. The commercial sector, if we look at the commercial sector as a whole, on the fee reports where you came from, what were the yields? What were the yield averages? Do you know?
It was not as high as yours. I know that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know it wasn't as high as what yours are.
Was it above average?
A little bit above average, yeah.
Well, that's good, man.
I don't remember the numbers. I apologize. I don't remember what they're.
That's okay. That's okay. But there are a lot of companies out there that are above average, and they have aggressive collectors, but they're just a little above average. They don't have the domination mindset. They've got the, oh man, we're doing great, we're making a bunch of money, things are good, I drive a Benz, I'm happy with it, but you know what? Screw that, man, let's dominate. Let's dominate.
You know, the biggest thing that we have as an advantage over other collection companies is our fees. Our fee schedule is phenomenal compared to others. Where I came from, they were 50% starting, and that was on Prime. Any Prime account, doesn't matter how many days old it was all 50%. And people were like, whoa, but they were paying it.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. Usually non-Prime is at 50%, Yeah.
I've run into some who said they've been charged a flat fee of 35% too, and I love it when you hear someone say they're being charged a flat fee, because like you're just saying, Trey, it's such a good point. The adjustable rate schedule is so fair. You can point out, oh hey, well, boy, that's interesting because our rates adjust by the difficulty of collecting the debt, so that's an advantage to you as a client. Anyway, it's really nice. It's a wonderful sales feature, and that I love running into whenever we get someone with the flat fee.
That's a good point, Ken.
And with a flat fee, where is the encouragement to send us the business at 90 days or before 90 days? Hey, look, you consider it dead at 90 days. Send it to me at 80 while there's still some meat on the bones, and you can get that prime rate instead of waiting 6 months and paying 33%. And when we are able to encourage a client to really build that relationship on those types of terms, they're making so much more money by using us and sending us the stuff quicker before it gets dead, because we can get much higher yields on fresh stuff than we can on something that's a year and a half old. Okay? And, we still make money on this stuff like this. We don't have to kill our clients on fees, and there are some agencies that will give them lower rates than what we have on like the 6-month-old stuff. One of the agencies I used to work for, as a matter of fact, their salespeople were famous for just giving it away, giving it away. I mean, for example, you know, like a client says, "Oh, well, I don't want to pay you 33% for a 6-month-old account," and the sales rep would say, "Well, you know, what do you think is fair?" And the client would say, "Oh, well, my last agency charged me 15%." And they'd say, "Okay, well, I can match your last agency's deal," and they bump right there. When you work for a better agency and they try to negotiate rates like that, and you see, Trey, the good thing is you're coming from a place that was higher than us, which I thought we were on the higher end.
No.
I guess the places I came from were way too famous for, and excuse my French on this, whoring themselves out.
No, our rates are great. Our rates are really good. I have a question though, Mike. If I get a guy, let's just say, and they want on, let's say on our 180 to 365 days, we're at 33%. That's over the 2,000. Let's say the guy says, "No way, I'm not going to do 33%. I'll do it at 25." Should I call you to get an approval on that, or what should, I mean, I know it says to call for approval, but just want to hear from you.
Depending on what the situation is, the reason it says call for approval, and that's until you get the swing of this business. We definitely want to look at the reason why, because the fact is he can go someplace else and get a lower rate, but he can't go someplace else and get better results.
That's true. Good point. That's right. And that's the way I would pitch it. I'd say, you know, you could get a better rate somewhere else, but as far as with our, you know, our retrieval rate, as far as I mean, that's what counts. You know, as far as the weight and the, you know, our percentage of the debt that we collected. You know, that's where the guy goes with us as opposed to somebody else because they have a lower rate. The rate sometimes doesn't sell it. It's what we can achieve for the results.
Right. And, you know, another thing, we're going to attempt to go after the fees and interest also to get that paid by the debtor. Now, don't oversell that, because we don't always get it paid. So we don't want to oversell that, but we do go after everything. And I've had many instances where a client has gotten back all of their money, all of the principal amount, plus some interest. And when that happens, man, Rick's not on here, but one of our guys, Rick has a few clients that we've had a lot of that happen for, and he's got a few of them that their actual yield, if we pull up a client report and look at collection yield, he's got one that's 133%. He's got some that are 116%, 120%, because we've collected everything they placed plus some of the fees and interest. And when that happens, you want to get that client in your corner and say, "Hey, man, I know you know some people that
right,
that could use me."
Absolutely. Referrals.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I love about this business is you get one that you sell, and we collect that, whatever debt. I mean, he's going to feed us. Just that's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially Kim's got a client she picked up a few months back that's in the trucking industry, and he had some accounts that. he thought they were uncollectible. They were with another agency, and they told him, well, we can't collect your money. They had one of them that said, on one of the accounts, they said they couldn't collect it because there was some type of bonding issue in Florida. Kim, is that where it was, Florida?
Yes, yeah. They fed him a line, basically, fed my client a line that he wouldn't know was true or not because they didn't know how to collect or didn't put out the effort or something. And it was Florida. We lost you. Where did you go?
Mike.
You know why? I was looking for something. You know what the bonding issue was? They didn't have one of these. Okay?
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
State of Florida collection agency bond for $50,000. That's what their problem was. They weren't compliant in Florida. They said, "Oh well, man, we're just going to skirt around everything and kind of wiggle by." And then something happened, and they got scared, and they said, "Oh, we can't go there. I'm sorry." That's what happened.
But the worst part was that they actually told my client that it couldn't be collected in Florida because of this, and because the client didn't know any better, he really thought that was the case. So, it's terrible that some companies are lying to cover their own inadequacies, essentially.
Well, and that's what they do. And it's not just that they want to be sleazy. A lot of these guys they don't want to admit to anybody that they're a piece of garbage. And I'm going to tell you, look, I don't even have pansies in my garden.
Hey, Mike, I have a question. Maybe you can answer for me. On bankruptcies, I know typically you can't go after bankruptcies. Now, let's say if a business has goes bankrupt for a debt that they owe to somebody, another business, but they don't include that business in the bankruptcy filing. Are we still able to go after it?
Yes, however, they can file an amendment to include it. Now, there are a couple of different things on bankruptcies that you should know about that they may not have mentioned at any previous agencies. One, if it is a transportation debt that a broker owes to a carrier, I don't care what happened, get the paper. Get the paper. Bankrupt, I don't care. Bring it on.
Okay.
We'll still collect it. Okay? Or if it's on a licensed contractor in either the state of Arizona, California, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, well, any of the western states. Let's take a look at that, because that contractor is most likely bonded to cover services or supplies that were used on a construction job.
Sure.
So there are going to be instances where we can collect something that's bankrupt. Most of the time, there's not. Sometimes there is. There's also one thing you want to ask if they say, "Oh, well, we had this guy, but he filed Chapter 11." Did he file it before or after you did business with him? Do you have the bankruptcy date? Is it before your invoice date? Because if it's post-petition debt, let me tell you what I'm going to do, or any collector that works for us is going to do. He's going to pick up the phone. He's going to call the debtor. And he's going to say, "I represent so-and-so. You have post-petition debt. the tenets of the U.S. Bankruptcy Court require all new transactions to be paid in full as per the terms and conditions of your bankruptcy. If not, then I have the right to call the trustee that's overseeing your Chapter 11 reorganization and ask him to force a liquidation, to turn your bankruptcy into an assignment for the benefit of creditors and liquidate all of your assets so that your creditors, including my client, can be paid. And if that business owner calls that collector's bluff, all that collector has to do is pick up the phone, call the trustee, and he's going to have to do a little homework. He's going to have to find this information because the debtor's surely not going to give it to him. But basic investigative skills is all that's required to find that information out. I wouldn't even consider it investigative skills. It's so basic. But he can then call that trustee, send him the documentation, and saying, look, he's not adhering to the terms of the Chapter 11. Can you maybe give him a little push for me so we don't have to feed him to the alligators? And a trustee will call him and say, look, man, either you pay this guy or we're going to have to come padlock your doors. And that's it. That's it. Done deal. That debtor's going to call that collector back with his tail between his legs and say, please, Mr. Lyons, don't do it.
And so this is where someone has filed for bankruptcy and then still conducted a piece of business after that, or business after that?
That's correct. And that's only on a Chapter 11, okay? Or, well, if you have, if the business we're going after is a sole proprietorship, it may be a 13, but any corporate debt is going to be a Chapter 11. A Chapter 7 is a complete liquidation, and if they do business after a complete liquidation is filed and try to tell them that, oh, I filed bankruptcy, that's, well, a pretty obvious intent to defraud. So that's criminal. That's a 7. That on a 7's completely different. It's not, we're going to shut your doors, it's, we're going to put your ass in jail.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Don't worry, I'll send you some soap on a rope so you don't drop it. Hope you enjoy federal prison, buddy. I'll write to you. Anyway, Chapter 11 post-petition debt. If you have a client that has some of that, get it. It's gravy. And we will absolutely put that gravy over some rice and eat it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mike. This is wonderful.
Awesome.
Yeah, good stuff today. Really good stuff.
Guys, don't keep thanking me, man. My ego's already big enough. Do you want me to get more arrogant? I'm just kidding, man. I'm kidding.
Well, I actually have to get going. I've got a 10:30 call coming up, but this has answered so many of people's questions right there. It was a good talk. So, yeah, thanks for participating, Trey. I really appreciate it.
Yes, good stuff. There's a good thing we have to do. I like this.
And we've got some viewers in there too, so this is good. I'm glad some people are getting some stuff out of this, and we're gonna shut this down anyway. I gotta go get me some lunch, and see if the keys are ready for our new building, and yeah, we're going to continue kicking ass and taking names.
That's great. Go enjoy your Catfish Friday, right?
I don't know if I'm in the mood for catfish. You know, I went this morning to the last song I heard in my car was Jimi Hendrix Catfish Blues. That's the one where, you know, I wish I was a catfish.
Funny.
So, in light of that, I think I'm going to skip the catfish today and maybe go get some shrimp.
Great.
Absolutely.
Hey, Kim, by the way, I'm going to go over everything because I'm learning how our protocol is done through Lions. So I'll give you a call on Monday, and then we can, because I want to start getting on the phone on Monday.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, go for it. And we'll just make sure you're set up in there and log into your CRM. Make sure you can get in there. If you have any trouble, give me a call.
Okay, perfect. Guys, it was a great meeting. Hope everybody has a good weekend.
Yeah, have a great weekend, everyone, too. Okay, talk to y'all later.
All right, Kim, take care. And that's it for today. Have a great weekend.